So narrative for us is the currency of dialogue. It's an opportunity for the speaker, for the sharer, to give people a sense of where they come from, where's been their journey, an insight into what matters to them. So narrative is an opportunity for the speaker to engage with the listener and to give them a gift of themselves. For us, narrative is best when it's not opinion. Opinion is staking, and we often say this, we think in terms of staking out your opinion. So we don't want participants to come in and stake out an opinion. We want them to share their informed, considered perspective. And so by informed, considered perspective, we want our students to consider where did my perspective come from? Where did it originate? We want them to deeply think about, in a critical way, why do I hold this perspective and what informs it? Is it reliable sources that I'm using to inform my perspective? Is it my family? Is it just sources that I trust? But where does my information come from? I often share 4 criteria with folks to consider. The first one is, does it contribute to the learning experience of the participants? That's probably the easiest one to remember. Is there something about what I'm going to share at this moment that really is a contribution to the learning experience? If it isn't, then I probably don't need to share it at this moment. The second one is, am I using this as a way to establish and build trust between me and the participants? That's another legitimate reason to step up and to step out and to share my own experience. The third one is, sometimes I want to role model the sort of participation that I'm hoping to get from the participants. So if there's something that I can offer or share that will make the space more safe or more brave for our participants, if I can normalize the risk taking by sharing something, that's also a legitimate reason to share. The last one I think is really thinking about, is there something unique about my voice and about my experience? Because if there's something that would be missing from the conversation, if there's something that I might offer that's somehow important to be added to the milieu of what's been shared already, then it's important that I share that perspective. Part of dialogue is conflict. And oftentimes that conflict is very much an intrapersonal conflict or dissonance. And all of our participants have moments where they might feel some dissonance. It's important for us as facilitators to understand the source of that dissonance. Where does that dissonance originate from? If it's from a place that is some sort of existential threat or represents a shaking at the core of the participant that's going to leave them vulnerable in a psychological or in an emotional way, then we want to be very cautious about how we proceed or if we go there. But if that dissonance is created just because we're asking them to stretch in ways that they hadn't anticipated, or we're putting them in a very unfamiliar space, or because they're being challenged to consider some way of being or thinking that's not their own, then we want to do that. That's part of the richness of dialogue. It's part of the discovery of dialogue. Like many things in intergroup dialogue, it's not a recipe. It's not formulaic. So there's no A plus B equals C that we can offer. It's oftentimes sort of like art. And not even paint by numbers. So you're trying different techniques at different times in a different context with different participants. So what you may try on one participant or with one participant may not be the same for another. Having said that, some of the techniques that we often will do is first start with a round. So inviting everyone in the space in a circular fashion to share so that every voice is heard normalizes the participation. It takes away the threat that I may be somehow more vulnerable than the other participants in the room. Oftentimes sharing first as a facilitator, normalizing that everyone is going to be a little bit vulnerable. There's nothing bad that's going to happen from sharing your experience. Also, inquiry, asking a question that shows genuine interest and appreciation in the story that you're looking for from a participant. So asking them to share with you something that's meaningful for them as an opportunity for us to learn and to listen to one another. Oftentimes in our work in intergroup relations, you hear, and someone else used this term, IGR becomes a noun, a verb, and an adjective. So you oftentimes will hear students talk about, I was in such an IGR experience yesterday, or I went home for Thanksgiving and I IGR'd my parents. So I think there's a lot of real world application. I think our students and the participants in our dialogues, even our facilitators, find themselves in situations all of the time in lots of different contexts where they're using the skills and the competencies and the attitudes that they develop in intergroup dialogue, both around communication, and tolerance for ambiguity, appreciation for difference, willingness to suspend judgment. All of those things are things that translates into lots of different contexts. As a standard method and as a place of responsibility, both for our facilitators but also for our participants, we always hand out referral information to our counseling and psychological services office on campus, because participating in dialogue can create anxiety. Sometimes revisiting or surfacing difficult moments in our lives could create anxiety. And we know that many of our students come to us already having some mental health issues or some mental health challenges. So they bring all of those things, just like we say, they bring all of themselves to dialogue. They can bring those issues as well. So as a facilitator, we have to be responsible enough to know how to make an appropriate referral when that referral is necessary. It's very essential for us to recognize all of our social identities and our intersecting identities, but maybe just as important or more importantly, what's the power dynamic created by those identities? I'm going to hold relative social power in contrast to my co-facilitator, and we both have to understand when and where and how do we utilize our positionality with respect to the power asymmetry in the room. How do we want to use that as instructors and facilitators? So as someone who may hold relative power, I may use myself as a role model for those in the dialogue like myself who have more relative social power. I may demonstrate that I'm willing to go there, or I'm willing to put things on the table, or willing to be at risk so that others will also do so. I may also use myself as a way of demonstrating humility as someone who may have more social power, as a way to demonstrate to the other participants that we should have some humility in sharing our experiences. And as someone who may hold relatively less power, I want to use my narrative as a facilitator as a way of empowering others to also use their voice, to also speak up for themselves, to also speak with some confidence about their own experience. No matter when we first engage with students, even at a high school age, or at a graduate student age, and certainly at our undergraduate level, we see growth and development in our trainees and in our facilitators who are currently practicing. I think you could expect that just the experience of training to become a facilitator and then being in a room with other participants and actually facilitating is going to elicit lots of growth and development, both in terms of one's own personal identity, one's confidence in having roles as a facilitator, but then also in their empathy, their communication skills, their curiosity about the world beyond their own. So I think we always see some level of growth and development, whether we're talking about the younger facilitators or the older ones. Thank you for watching this video, and we certainly expect that there's going to be more to learn and to explore. If we can be a resource for you, we're happy to, and we invite you to contact the program on intergroup relations either through our website, through email, or just give us a call.